Oh, okay. I'm going to do roll call. Good afternoon. Pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Opens Meetings Act, notice is hereby given that the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, in accordance with Article 5, Section 12 of the Charter of said city, will convene a regular meeting on October 1st, 2024 at 5 p.m. in the City Commission chambers located on the second floor of the Brownsville City Hall Old Federal Building, located at 1001 East Elizabeth Street, Brownsville, Cameron County, Texas, 78520. Members of the public who submitted a public comment form will be permitted to offer public comments as provided by the agenda and as permitted by the presiding officer during the meeting. A recording of the meeting will be made available to the public in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. Mayor Pro Tem, would you like for me to start with roll call?
Thank you, Marina. Please proceed.
Thank you. Commissioner Dino Villarreal? Commissioner, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Brian L. Martinez?
Present.
Commissioner Roy De Los Santos?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Rose Gowen? Thank you. Commissioner Linda C. Macias? Commissioner Pedro Cardenas?
Present.
Thank you. Mayor John Cowan?
Present.
Thank you. Hey, Mayor Pro Tem, we do have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you. With that being said, I'd like to call this evening's meeting to order.
Thank you. It is 5:03 p.m. Meeting has been called to order. The next item is invocation by Pastor Brad Burks, and we'll follow that by Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand for the prayer and please remain standing afterwards for the pledge. Father God, we thank you once again for the many blessings we have here in Brownsville. First of all, we ask you to bless those that have been affected by the storm in the southeast of our nation. Lord, we ask you to comfort those that have lost loved ones, lead and guide and bless and direct each of them that have to put their lives back together. Lord God, I ask you to lead and guide and have your will in the entire Middle East right now, as well as in Ukraine. And Lord, for those of us that are here, we thank you that you have a specific and awesome plan and purpose for each of our lives. I ask you to draw us closer to you and to your obedience so that we can see your plan and purpose, both in our relationship with you, in our personal lives, in our families, and in our public service. Lord, I ask you to lead and guide our mayor, mayor pro tem, and commissioners here tonight for the very best for the city of Brownsville. And we ask all these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Let's have a short moment of silence where we can all add our prayers to what has just been spoken. Amen.
The flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One Texas, one state under God. Next, we have proclamations. Texas A&M Partnership.
Is there anyone here for that tonight? Don't be shy. Thank you for coming. This is a proclamation of the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas, recognizing Brownsville youth selected to the Texas A&M Leadership Program. Whereas beginning in the summer of 2025, Texas A&M University will offer 75 high school students a 3-week civics-focused residential experience through the Bush School of Government and Public Service. Made possible with support from the Texas Pioneer Foundation, the program will be held annually each summer. And whereas students will focus on civics and public service by building relationships with academic and community experts in a variety of fields, while also engaging in activities that will include visiting elected leaders at the state capitol, problem solving to create solutions to Texas-specific issues, building public concern campaigns, building local mock political campaigns, participating in a college-level book study, building leadership through our outdoor education experiences. And whereas recognizing the importance of student voice in anything that involves youth, a group of exceptional high school students were nominated by their community to be that representative. 3 students from Brownsville are part of the 17 who were selected, with others coming from Bryan, College Station, Houston, Tyler, Henderson, and Lake Highlands and Dallas. And whereas the 3 students that were selected from Brownsville include Camila San Miguel, a student from Porter High School, Viviana Novello, a student from Pace High School, and Sebastian Green, a student from St. Joseph Academy. This was also made possible by the support of the parents, teachers, principals, and other community leaders. And whereas Brownsville, Texas is committed to providing a quality education for all students, helping them to achieve their highest potential by supporting different opportunities, including leadership preparation and college preparation. Now, therefore, we, the members of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, by virtue of the authority vested by the charter of said city, and on behalf of all of our citizens, do recognize Camila, Viviana, and Sebastian for their selection to the Texas A&M Youth Leadership Program. Done on this first day of October 2024, signed by the Mayor and City Commission.
Felicidades. Muchas felicidades. Felicidades.
Would any of you like to say words? Well, I'd like to say that it's an honor to be selected for this opportunity, and we were instructed to give special thanks to the McDonald's on Palm Boulevard and to A&M for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Next, we have a proclamation honoring the late Catarino Y. Garza.
I know we have family members, descendants present with us tonight. Please come forward.
For the record, we do have Commissioner Villarreal here. Thank you.
A proclamation of the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas, recognizing and honoring General Catarino Erasmo Garza Rodriguez. Whereas Catarino Erasmo Garza Rodriguez was born on November 25th, 1859 in Matamoros, Tamaulipas. He was a prominent journalist and a precursor to the Mexican Revolution. Whereas Catarino Erasmo Garza Rodriguez, at the age of 17, moved to Brownsville, Texas, where he established import mutual aid societies supporting the Mexican-American community, such as the Juarez Society in 1879 and the Hidalgo Society in 1880 to help cover the costs of burials of Brownsville residents and help the widows with monetary aid. Whereas Catarino Erasmo Garza Rodriguez promoted commercial activities as he was in favor of the free movement of people and goods across the U.S.-Mexico border. Whereas Catarino Erasmo Garza Rodriguez founded the Texas newspaper El Bien Público in 1875, El Comercio Mexicano in 1886, and El Libre Pensador in 1887, through which he advocated for Mexican migrants' rights and political issues. And whereas Catarino Erasmo Garza Rodriguez founded the Club Político Mutualista México Tejano in 1888, where he defended the rights of Mexicans in Texas and fought against racism. And whereas Catarino Erasmo Garza Rodriguez launched a proclamation on the banks of the Rio Grande in Matamoros, which started a rebellion against Porfirio Diaz on September 15, 1891, that lasted 6 months before he was forced into exile in Central America, where he continued his activism. And whereas Catarino Erasmo Garza Rodriguez was killed on March 8, 1895, fighting for the freedom and independence of Latin American peoples in Bocas del Toro, Panama, now therefore we, the members of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, by virtue of the authority vested by the Charter of said city, and on behalf of all our citizens, and on the occasion of the commemoration of the historical figure, do hereby recognize and honor Catarino Erasmo Garza Rodriguez for his achievements. May his life and legacy continue to inspire the pursuit of justice, democracy, and freedom. Signed on both September 25th, 2024, and on this day, 1st of October, 2024, by the Mayor and City Commissioners of the City of Brownsville.
My name is Chuck Tijerina. I'm a great grandson of Catarino. I just want to say thank you to the city. This is kind of a surreal. This man has been a historian, or a life history of the family, and it's nice to see it finally being acknowledged in public. Thank you.
Next is public comment period. As a reminder, per section 2-26, meetings and agendas, public input during meetings, conduct, conversations between or among audience members should be conducted outside the meeting room. Attendees should refrain from conversations while commission is in session. Cell phones. Attendees must refrain from the operation and use of cellular telephones, pagers, etc., or any mechanical devices that may disrupt city commission proceedings. Placards, banners, or signs are not to be permitted in the commission chambers or in any other room in which the city commission conducts a meeting. Included in this prohibition are various hats, caps, visors, and t-shirts which may represent sentiments as alluded to regarding placards, banners, and/or signs. Exhibits, displays, and visual aids used in connection with the presentations to the City Commission are permitted. Only City Commission members and city staff may approach the dais. If report, letter, etc. is to be presented to the Commission, it should be given to the City Secretary or staff, who will make the distribution. It is preferable that the item to be distributed be given to the City Secretary prior to the meeting time. A copy of the item should be made available for the City Secretary's official record. All comments shall be made to the Mayor and City Commission as a whole, and not to individual commission members. Mayor Pro Tem, we do have 4 public comments this evening. The first one is Sean Ayers.
How you doing? Sean Ayers. I came here to get it put on the agenda that I want to see how much money is going into that OEM, because when I crossed the border the other day, I seen OEM and I seen the disaster management services down at the border. Last I checked, economic migrants do not count as an emergency. I see this as a misallocation of town funds. I'd like to get it put on how much is being allocated to this fund to give them people all the time to get paid to go down there when it's not an emergency. Crisis, yes. Disaster, only what comes afterwards. But that's why I'm here, because I do not think that that classifies as an emergency. So I would like to get that moved, and I will proposition for that to be put on the next agenda to find out how much money is going to this, because I see this as a misallocation of funds. And it's not a disaster. The only disaster is inviting people here that the national IQ is 67. 69 starts at mildly retarded, but lawyers and astronauts, right? That's it. Thanks.
Next, we have Yolanda Spies.
Good afternoon. For over a year, I've come to these meetings sharing my personal experience and seeking a reasonable resolution with no end in sight. Today, I want to address an encounter that happened right before the last meeting that left me with the feeling of discomfort, confusion, being sent a very cryptic message. The person who did this has been present at these meetings since April 18, 2023. He's not here today, and approached me with a lot of confidence outside these chambers before the meeting. While I know who he is, we've never spoken directly. He's never formally introduced himself to me and has never made any effort to speak to me, even though I've tried to make several efforts on my own. So this confident and brazen approach toward me was beyond odd. His approach without any formalities felt overly familiar, unprofessional, and inappropriate. I've been told that any communication regarding my concerns should be more formal on both sides, yet this interaction ignored that completely. If we are to move forward, I'm willing to have that conversation with you all, but it's got to be done appropriately. It should involve both parties and legal counsel if necessary to ensure fairness and respect for me and the other side. This is the only way we can work towards a resolution, and I don't think I'm asking for anything unreasonable. I want to be heard, treated with respect. I want my concerns taken seriously and to resolve the issues that have unnecessarily persisted for way too long. Ignoring and brushing me and my concerns aside, along with other Brownsville residents, does nothing to help us move forward as a community. We need open and honest communication handled with transparency if we're ever going to reach productive and fair resolutions to citizens' concerns. I believe that with mutual respect and proper, transparent, and clear communication, we can resolve this. I ask that you take this matter seriously and ensure that any future discussions happen through the proper channels. This is the only transparent and clear path to a fair and meaningful resolution for all parties involved, and we need to get on that soon. Thank you.
Next, we have Christian Hatcher.
Afternoon, I'm Christian. I would like to start with a question regarding resolution number 2023-120-A. Can I please ask a question about this? I would like to ask the city attorney to clarify whether the pilot program was extended past May 31st, 2024.
This is a public comment section. We can't address speakers, but we'll have staff speak with the young lady outside or after this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have Olivette Peña Fisher.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon to the mayor and the commissioners and the public as well. My name is Olivette Peña Fisher. I understand that today the commission will vote to potentially approve the review of additional billboard applications that were submitted after the Billboard Pilots Program's deadline, a wait list of late applications that were submitted after the initial deadline. For the record, I am in favor of an extension, and I would like the commission to consider an amendment or exception to the proposed date of May 31st, 2024, to a date that would include those who were told that they could not submit a late application like myself. I hold a permit from the state of Texas to utilize my privately owned commercial property to construct an off-premise electronic sign on Interstate 69. What I don't have is the ability to apply for the local permit because it was expressed to me that no late applications were accepted for the pilot program. I would have been one of those billboards you would be considering today if I was afforded the same time and opportunity to apply. I applaud the commission and all of our city employees for the effort in reviewing policies and working together to come up with policies that will protect our environment and at the same time show growth for our city. In summary, what I'm asking for is an exception to the deadline from this commission, as it has been afforded to others, to allow me to submit my application to complete my goals of owning a billboard and supporting small businesses with an affordable advertising option and the community as a whole. I thank you very much for listening and your attention tonight. Thank you and have a great day.
Next, we have presentations. Presentation by Warriors United in Arms.
Mayor Pro Tem, City Commissioners, it's really an honor to be before you. I'm here to officially pass ownership of a UH-1 Iroquois helicopter to the city of Brownsville. This helicopter flew in Vietnam and was shot down twice. But like the American soldier, it went down fighting and came back again. This helicopter saved thousands and thousands of lives. It was first used as a medevac, and after that, it was weaponized to be as our aerial artillery. This helicopter transported thousands of American soldiers. As a matter of fact, the official number is 900,000 soldiers were evacuated from the combat fields in 15 years. They had, those of us that were there, we remember that they had what they called the golden hour. If you could get a wounded soldier off the field and get him into an aid station within an hour, chances of surviving were 98 to 99%. And that was an amazing feat. In World War II in Korea, it took several hours to transport wounded American soldiers to an aid station. There were 3,500 helicopters dispatched to Vietnam. Out of the 3,500 helicopters, half of them, 50%, were knocked out of the air, out of the sky. Ours was a survivor. It was shot down twice, refurbished, and went back into combat. At the end of the war, it was transported back to the United States, and a gentleman in Dallas, Texas, bought the helicopter. He had it in his backyard, and it was going to be, according to him, it was going to be recycled into Coke cans. That we thought was unbelievable to us. It's the last helicopter, and they were going to recycle it to Coke cans. So with the help of a local merchant who wishes to be kept, her name not be disclosed, She helped us obtain the $39,500 to pay for the helicopter. Then we had another local merchant that helped us transport the helicopter from Dallas to the Brownsville Airport, where it was received by Mr. Denny Salinas and Mr. De Palmas, which they have done a great job in helping us bring this piece of history to Brownsville. It will be dedicated on November 11th of this year, but we want the world to know that it is of today, this piece of military history becomes the property of the city of Brownsville and all its citizens, including the veterans who flew and fought in it. So I am very proud to say that the helicopter belongs to the citizens of Brownsville. And we wish to thank Mr. De Los Santos for all his help. Without him and Denny Salinas and Mr. De Palma, we wouldn't be here today. We have 4 phases to the helicopter at the Veterans Park. First is the installation of the helicopter on a pedestal, which we're hoping it would be done very, very soon. Be ready by November 11th. The next thing we want to do, we want to beautify. Our group wants to beautify the park and make it the most beautiful park south of San Antonio. And with your help, which we're going to be knocking on your doors, and we are going to beautify the park, make it the most beautiful park we can. And we want to put a waterfall in there to symbolize life. We're going to have native palms that are native plants that are very similar to the plants that were in Vietnam. No, the plants that were in Vietnam would not survive here. Even though the weather is probably hotter in Vietnam, but according to one of the people we're working with, they would not survive. And again, I want to thank Roy and Mr. Martinez for helping in everything they have done to us. You know, we work very hard and we're very proud to transfer the ownership of this piece of amazing history to the city of Brownsville. And again, I want to thank Roy and Mr. Martinez, Danny, and Mr. De Palma for all the help. And like I said, we're going to be knocking on your doors, the other commissioners, because we're going to need help to beautify the park. And we hope we can get your support. We want to thank you. And we're going to invite all the citizens of Brownsville to participate in November 11 and see this wonderful piece of history. Very unique to South Texas. It's the only helicopter south of San Antonio. So Brownsville, we have a helicopter. Thank you. Again, Roy, thank you. Brian, thank you.
No, Mr. Garcia, thank you, and to all the members of the Warriors United in Arms. I think this commission and even the prior commission under Mayor Trey Mendez has worked extensively with you guys. I know I was there my first year in office helping build a wheelchair ramp in District 1 for a veteran that you all were looking after and taking care of. So the work that you all have been doing already for your fellow veterans in the community is what's inspired the support you're seeing from all of us up here. And have no doubt that the support from the city commission is unanimous, that each and every one of us supports you guys. And I know several nonprofit organizations within the community who would like to get involved with the beautification efforts at Veterans Park as well. So we'll talk some more.
The more the merrier. Like I said, we want to have the most beautiful park south of San Antonio. But it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of money.
Amen.
But, you know, we're all soldiers and we were taught never to give up. And we're not going to give up on the park. We're going to make it the most beautiful park in the whole valley. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next presentation is the Stormwater Response Project and Program Updates, Engineering Public Works Department.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem Commissioners. We give a presentation on our proposed projects and our response times. My name is Carlos Lastra. I'm the city engineer, joined by
Maribel Guerrero, Assistant Director for Engineering and Public Works. Pleasure to be here with all today.
So I want to talk about the events that we had between September 10th and September 15th. The September 10th, which was related to the Tropical Storm Francine event. The rain, first notice came in at 3:47 a.m. from the National Weather Service. The rain amounts between 4:27 and 10 a.m. 4:27 a.m. 10 a.m. was a total of 7 inches. That's a span of about 5.5 hours of rain. So, and in contrast, on the September 15th event, the first day came in at 3:55 p.m. and the rain measured between 4:51 and 5:20, which is a total of 30 minutes, was a total of 4 inches. So that's a tremendous amount of rain in that short period of time. It's like, you know, the city got hit hard with that event.
We want to showcase to you all is just some of the efforts that we responded to for these two events. And so we'll show you various aspects of what we were dealing with on the ground with our troops of engineering and public works. As you can see, the Tropical Storm Francine on September 10th really overwhelmed our drainage systems. We saw 13 feet of water at Impala Pump Station. Our drainage ditches, our side swales, and our resacas were really, really full with water. There were several contributing factors when it comes to what happened with the inundation of our drainage systems. We saw that one, we have limited infrastructure for the flow of water. We also have the additional contributing factor of just clogged inlets. And you can see here from the photographs some of the themes that our crews on the ground were dealing with that day, you know, mixed debris and primarily grass clippings from mowing and trimming of trees. Tropical Storm Francine really made us kind of jump to our feet here. And if you can see that throughout the city, we have about 30,000 inlets that a 3-man crew within our storm water department manages. So within any given year, they maintain about 1,500 of those 30,000 inlets. So it is a challenge for us. We try to do our best in storm events or in preparation for storm events, especially in the onset of hurricane season. My teams really focus on priority areas of historically flooded areas. So we always make sure that those areas are clean with inlets first, and because we know that flooding is going to happen in these areas. The second storm event on September the 15th, there we go. The second storm event, it was 4 days after, you know, our 7-inch rainfall. We experienced about 2 to 4 inches, as Carlos said, in about a 30-minute rain span. We really experienced fast stormwater runoff. One, because the soil within the cities of Brownsville, you know, it had no more permeability. It was already saturated with water. The second thing, our groundwater was also supercharged, right? So what we experienced was fast stormwater runoff. We experienced flooding in areas where historically we hadn't seen that kind of flooding event. So it was an eye-opener for us in terms of how we need to expand our infrastructure and work on some projects that really help to alleviate flooding in those areas. And the good thing is that the city, our engineering department has been very diligent about planning and to address these issues. So Carlos in a little bit will showcase some of those projects that we have in the works for you. The second storm event, what we also saw is most of our inlets in historically flooded areas had already been cleaned of debris. So we responded, we prepared after the math of Storm Francine. And the second storm hit 4 days later. So our inlets weren't so much of an issue as was our limited infrastructure. Most of our drainage systems in the city of Brownsville are prepared or designed for 2 to 4 year storm event, 2 to 3 year storm event, I'm sorry. So that means it can handle about 2 to 4 inches in about an hour of rainfall in a normal storm event, not following any previous major storm events like we saw with Francine. And I'm going to turn it over to Carlos next. Oh, what I also wanted to highlight here in this picture is that we could not have done this adequate response without the cooperation of our other departments, including EMS, fire, and police departments. I really want to commend their efforts here. They're integral to our response.
Okay, so first project we're going to go over is the Southwest Water Plane Park. This is a 10-acre site between Resaca La Guerra and North Main Drain. It's over behind Burton Drive, if you're all familiar with the area. This is going to help alleviate flooding in the Four Corners, which has historically been a pain point for us in terms of flooding. The plan is to advertise this at the end of the year. Project 2 is the Impala Pump Station and concrete ditch lining. The East Loop kind of forces to kind of re-examine this design because the East Loop is going to come in through here, and so we might have to we're going to have to modify this pump station. And as you can see here, this is an area where we're proposing to relocate the Impala Pump Station. The plan is to, well, first of all, one of the first projects that we're working on is the Tomates Banco, which we're going to be dredging that Resaca around the Tomates Banco, and also create detention bonds in the Geronimo Banco, which is just, south of the East Loop, or the proposed East Loop. And the pump station will be located to that Geronimo Banco and drain that area. The Los Tomates Banco has already been, we have already opened bids on that. We're hoping to award that very soon. Oh yeah, and the Impala drain ditch lining as well. As you can see, we're going to be lining the Impala drain ditch. You see the green sections there on the map. We're going to concrete line those and which will help improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the drain ditch. Helps water flow faster out of the Brownsville area. So, project 3 is our SCADA and culvert improvements. We're going to be installing SCADA and weirs and culvert improvements. Culverts are basically pipes that help move water between Resacas and under roads, and helps with the efficiency, makes the flow more efficient throughout the city. And we're also going to be installing USGS sensors in these areas that will help us, monitor in real time flows, water levels. And it's a very good tool that is maintained by USGS, but they give us access to this data and these sensors, so we will have something that they maintain for us. Project 4 is the West Brownsville drainage. The plan is we're going to award this at the next commission meeting. This involves installing a 60-inch reinforced concrete pipe, which helps alleviate flooding in this portion of West Brownsville. It's about approximately 250 acres that would be benefited from this project. These are the locations of existing USGS gauging stations. As I mentioned, the ones in red are existing. As I mentioned previously, these are maintained and operated by the USGS. They do provide us access to the data from these gauges in real time, so we can see in real time what flows are, what water levels are, the amount of rainfall that we receive. So it's very helpful for us in managing and managing these type of events. The ones in black are proposed that we're proposing to install in future projects as well. So we're going to have a pretty good coverage area of sensors throughout the city. Y'all have any questions? Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions.
Go ahead, Rose.
The project at Southmost, at
Yes.
Four Corners, I read you're going out for bid in December, which is excellent. And how long do you anticipate between that and the time that it's complete?
It's scheduled for, I think, a year, 12 months.
So it takes a year to build it?
Yes. Yeah, that's going to be a great project. It's going to have amenities like soccer fields, basketball courts, and which can be used when it's not raining. And in the events of rain, heavy rain, it'll be filled up, it'll drain out,
That's excellent, excellent, thank you.
Carlos and Maribel, Great job. I think everyone in the commission is familiar with the fact that we're seeing the greatest investment in the history of the city in infrastructure, including drainage and flooding. And we see you guys out there. I know Commissioner Cardenas and myself were on site with you guys recently with one of those flooding issues. And we appreciate the work because we saw firsthand your guys getting in there chin deep into the water and sometimes underwater, making sure that we're taking care of our citizens. So thank you for that. I like this presentation. What I would like to see is if we have a version that's expanded, that also includes other projects that we have going on. Because I know we've got something that'll impact Tradition Estates that I don't think was part of this. And I know we've got the other one off of Old Port Isabel, behind the Walmart there at Old Port Isabel and Boca Chica. I think those are projects that the public would love to hear about because it's going to be a direct impact to all of them, especially for areas that for generations have flooded in our city. So yeah, if we can grow this deck and make it available to the public, I think that would be fantastic. And I think every member of the commission would like to share that with their constituents.
The Tradition Estates improvements are being done internally. So they're being handled by my public works crews with the design efforts of our engineering team. So it's a great cooperative program that we have for Tradition Estates. So it's not costing the city except in materials. Everything is being done internally.
Excellent.
I remember a few years back, there were a whole deck of very expensive projects that we were awarded thanks to the grant writers in the city. Is this the bulk of them, or are there any that are still waiting to be worked on?
Yeah, we're still waiting on some to be worked on. Yes, we're waiting for funding from Water Development Board to be approved for those.
Okay,
We have
so-
submitted, yes.
So maybe a little update on those, not now, but in
The
an
the
email.
projects presented today are 5 of 7 approved projects from Texas Water Development Board.
That's what I meant.
The bulk of the 2019 projects will be starting construction hopefully by the end of this year. We have one coming, like Carlos mentioned, next week, and the other one probably shortly after that. And then the advertisement for the Four Corners detention towards the end of the year. Then in addition to that, we have the ARPA funded project, which is the dredging of the Resaca, which was also mentioned on here. That one is probably going to be within the next couple of months. You'll see it here at the commission for the award of that project as well. And then we will have a separate presentation for the HUC 10 projects, which are the ones that Commissioner De Los Santos mentioned. That study that was completed about 5-6 months ago includes in our region 8 projects, and we've submitted for funding. We still have not received any notices on any awards yet, and that's the one for Four Corners that you were referring to. So we can definitely provide an update on the projects that we submitted for funding as part of our next presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
One more comment. I think it's important for us, I mean, besides everything that you all are doing and all the money that's going into every one of these projects, it's important for us to tell the community where the trash goes, right? We can't leave trash on the
Yes,
floor,
thank
on
you.
the streets. If we do that, we will continue to clog no matter what we do. So we really need to get the word out again. I know we try our best, but we should continue to do it.
Another project that we're working on is the community rating system for FEMA. We're looking to become a certified community. What that does for our citizens, depending on what level we rank at, it provides lower insurance rates for our citizens in Brownsville. We will also include that in the update with the HUC 10 study. And the link for flood insurance is on the last page here for a reason. I think it's very important for our community. We've all seen what Helene has done in the United States. It's a very catastrophic event. The events we've seen here recently are, rainfalls that have, fortunately, we've seen some flooding and some damages, but the amount of rainfall is a lot less than what we've seen in some of the latest hurricanes in the past couple of years. And if we receive one of those 10 to 12-inch rainfalls, God forbid in our area, it's very advantageous to our citizens to have flood insurance.
We've seen the storms become much more explosive and much more intense that we've seen in the past. So preparedness and response is very, very important right now, which bring forward this presentation to let you know what our department is doing in response to these, and also to convey the message that they've been working on this for quite some time. Now we're on the verge of having those projects come into reality. So help is on the way. Some alleviation it's not going to solve all of our problems, but it's going to be a great help. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have city manager's update. South Texas Alliance Cities Quarterly Meeting.
Yes, I just wanted to point out that there are 8 cities that are part of the South Texas Alliance of Cities. That's Brownsville, Harlingen, Westlaco, McAllen, Edinburgh, Laredo, and San Antonio. And we did host the last meeting, and McAllen hosted this meeting that just took place recently. It was in McAllen, and they talked about critical issues. I know we had the mayor. He's online, and I don't know if he wants to say anything, but the focus was really on the urgency of water, our water needs and our infrastructure needs. Mayor, I don't know if you want to comment on that, and I see the governor was there in support.
Thank you, Helen. Yes, water was for me the number one topic. It was really great to see the governor and all the state leadership come down. I believe you brought heads from TxDOT, Water Development Board, TDEM, and TCEQ. They were all there, right? So I think that really shows how the state is viewing the valley, and I think that means under our South Texas Alliance, we're able to have a much stronger voice.
Thank you, Mayor. And here, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out to the public library. I know we have, I believe Juan here. And we want to just thank you so much. I know many of the commissioners were there present in celebration, and it's meant so much to staff to be there and to really celebrate the event. And so while we had over 1,200 of our community out there celebrating, and I don't know, Juan, if you want to talk about how exciting this was for our staff. I think it's important to thank them and thank them for all the work that they're doing.
Good evening, commissioners. Yes, it was a very exciting event. Personally, I've been 27 years out of the 30, and we actually had employees that were there before the library opened, and an employee that was been here for only a month. So it was a great celebration. Obviously, we went through a tough situation in May, a week before the actual anniversary, but it's just an amazing to be part of in my opinion, the best library in South Texas, hands down. And it's because of the team that I have, that they are the ones that are important. And most importantly, the ones that are receiving the benefits are wonderful residents. So thank you for your support. We'll continue to improve because we need to evolve and we need to make our library our destination. So thank you.
Thank you, Juan.
Next, we have consent agenda items.
Mayor, I'll move to approve consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would just like to point out that this commission has, I think, in many years has not put so much money into our nonprofits. And on this consent agenda, we also have, $1 million more going to the zoo for the Lions exhibition. So I think it's important to point that out. Thank you.
Fine. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those against, motion passes.
Next are public hearings. Public hearing number 1. Public hearing and actions on the following billboard sign applications to request the review of a sign application to allow a dual-face digital billboard at the property location at the following locations. Number 1, application ID number 2024-02137 at the property located at 6377 North Expressway 77, Brownsville, Texas 78520, as shown in Exhibit A1, District 4. And for the record, I'll just continue reading the rest. Number 2, application ID number 2024-02155 at the property located at 705 North Expressway 77, Brownsville, Texas 78520, as shown in Exhibit A2, District 3. Number 3, application ID number 2024-02268 at the property location at 6105 East Padre Island Highway, Brownsville, Texas 78521, as shown in Exhibit A-3, District 2. And number 4, application ID number 2024-02269 at the property located at 5182 East Padre Island Highway, Brownsville, Texas 78521, as shown in Exhibit A-4, District 2, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. As mentioned, this evening, we're presenting four billboard applications that were tabled back on May 21st. As per the guidance of the commission, an illumination study or an evaluation of these sites was done by a consultant. We do have them online, Mr. Chan Sparks and Mr. Dan Koss, who assisted us in the evaluation of each site, and they're going to be speaking on the methodology and the recommendations for each billboard.
Hi, I'm Dan Koss, electrical engineer and lighting designer. I had the privilege of going through this. This was a fun, out of the norm for me to evaluate this and read into the Illuminating Engineering Society, IES, recommended practices for offsite billboards. The way the IES recommends evaluating these types of signs is to look at the surrounding areas on the billboards and electronic signs for lighting zones, and it bends it into level lighting zone 0 through lighting zone 4, 0 being no ambient light and 4 being a very congested downtown urban area. I looked at each of these proposed sign locations and made my estimate on whether it would be lighting zone 1 through 3. None of them really seem to hit 4. And from that, the IS recommends constraining the luminance, the amount of light projected from the surface of the sign, based on those lighting zones, anywhere from 0 lumens for like way out Big Bend National Park type, no occupancy, to, sorry, not lumens, 0 candelas per square meter to 20, 40, 80, or 160 candelas per square meter during dusk to dawn time periods. A lot higher luminance levels are available during the day because you're competing with sunlight.
I'm sorry.
Why don't we go through each billboard and then they could see, 'cause it's kind of hard to see it without the table and the visual. So why don't you take us through
Right,
each
so
one
we
as a
will
public
be
hearing as
speaking
well.
to each in every location. The first location is at 6377 North Expressway. This particular billboard is fronting the expressway, and this property is currently zoned regional center.
Excuse me, just for the record, we do have Commissioner Macias connected virtually. Thank you.
And just for quick clarification, this is one item, but there is 4 applications. This is going to be one motion, or would this be individually considered?
Up to us.
It's up to the commission. You could do it as one motion or approve one individually.
Thank you.
But the public hearing will be just one public hearing, open, close.
I would like to point that each billboard has its own evaluation. So at the conclusion of each billboard, you'll see the evaluation, and then the lighting consultant could speak to that evaluation.
And I have one further question. At the end of all of this, then are we able to accept more applications, or is that up to us?
That would be, you will provide us more direction in the item 1 of items for individual consideration. And that's where we'll address whether we open it up or not.
Okay, as mentioned, this billboard being pointed out with the red arrow is fronting the expressway. There is 0.98 miles to the closest billboard to the north, which is roughly 5,348 feet. And on the same side, to the north as well, we have 1,773 feet. To the south, we have 2,529 feet along the same side. And on the opposite side to the north, we have 4,192 feet. Across the expressway, directly across this particular sign, the distance is 592 feet. This is a zoning map of the property. As mentioned, it is zoned regional center. It is dually faced. It is illuminated. There is textile approval. It has 672 square feet, an elevation of 75 feet. And as mentioned, to the north, the closest billboard is 1,773 feet. To the south, there is a billboard at a distance of 2,529 feet. And this is just a schematic of the structural components of the billboard, a render of approximately how it would be installed on the location. And the proposed location on the property. So we will allow now the consultant to provide the explanation of their recommendation.
This most closely resembles lighting zone 3 by the IES definitions. The sign is surrounded by light industrial and adjacent to a major highway. The luminance should be limited to 80 candelas per meter squared from dusk to dawn, based on those recommendations.
And we just want to point out that P&Z did recommend the approval for this billboard.
Want us to ask questions at each one or wait till the end?
You can do so at any time.
So can you go back to the previous, yeah. So that in itself, you're saying that you're recommending approval as long as they stick to those lumens?
Close. Candelas per meter squared, or nits. I won't get too nerdy on it. There's other constraints that should be considered with that. Changes the frequency and the changing of the display and limited to the animations. A plan for how they intend to determine nighttime and constrain it to the dusk to dawn, because it will be brighter during the day. And also plan for verification with testing instruments after construction to confirm that it's limited to that light.
We have any other questions from the commission? We can move on to the next application.
Yeah, the following location site is at 705 North Expressway. The property is currently zoned commercial corridor. This is an aerial view of the property. The red dot represents the location of the sign. To the north along the same side, there is a billboard existing at 1,570 feet. Along the same side to the south, there's another billboard existing at 5,328 feet. And to the north, across the opposite side of the expressway, there is a billboard existing at 3,179 feet. And finally, one to the south at 1,021 feet. As mentioned, the property is zoned commercial corridor. And the proposed area for this particular billboard is also 672 square feet, an elevation of 60 feet, duly faced and illuminated. This is a proposed render of the billboard. And this is the approximate location in reference to the property lines. This is another aerial view. And this is a recommendation.
Don, you want to
So-
speak to what we're seeing?
This site is located near commercial properties, but immediately surrounded by parks and neighborhood residential. The highway would indicate possibly a higher lighting zone, but the other adjacent properties most closely resemble a lighting zone 1. As such, limitation of 20 candelas per square meter between dusk and dawn is appropriate. Further limitations on size, height, and viewing angle along with white or bright light should also be considered due to the proximity of residential properties.
Any questions?
So the door, so both sides will have illuminated billboard, or is it like paper, poster one? That's my question.
For this particular billboard, both sides are illuminated.
I'm so sorry, I couldn't hear you. One more time.
Yes, both sides are illuminated.
Thank you.
My question was the same as the last one. There are still limitations or things about this sign that you still yet to be determined, or?
Very similar on the controls narrative and limitations on the frequency of changing of the display and limiting on animation. Yes. Same comments on those throughout for all of these sites.
And Mr. Cos, I'm sorry, Dr. Gowan, were you finished with your question?
Yes, I was finished.
I have a question in regards to this, and it's I don't know how the illuminated billboards work, and so we're talking about what is recommended in regards to the illuminating or the lights of it. Now, is this something that is programmed into, or is this controlled, or is this something that once you put it up, you can no longer change on the lighting of it? I just seem to be confused when it comes down to the system.
Oh, very good question, and good thought process leading up to that. It is controlled within the sign, and that is something that would be good to have acknowledgement from the plan set of this is the limitation, this is how we're planning to limit it, and how we were limiting it to that luminance from that sign. It would also be good to check it, right? Like, numbers are great. I fully understand. I'm a pencil pushing engineer. I love doing these calculations and pushing my pencil around. But in reality, once it's constructed, things could be slightly different. And having a confirmation with a luminance meter, it'd be good to have a plan to spot check all of these billboards, right? To go out and have a luminance meter and just randomly verify that it's meeting the expectation. Also be great to have that if there is a complaint about these, to go and say, yes, this is meeting the IES recommendations or below the IES recommendations. And if something changes, power cycle, power outage, and things reset, something to go back and check and make sure it's compliant.
Thank you.
Does that answer? I rambled a little bit, but I want to make sure I answered your
Oh,
questions and
yes,
addressed your
it's
concerns.
mainly we want to, no, thank you. We want to be careful with what we're agreeing to. And so I know that in the past, there have been complaints where, lights are too bright, especially when facing the neighborhood. So we just want to be careful, and we just want to know that, how this works. and knowing if there is any like quantitative data that we can have that feedback or that proof that, hey, it's not as bright as, it may seem, and we're on this, and this is how we're tracking it, and this is how we're keeping track of it. So that's kind of just, where that question stems from.
It really helped. I very much recognize again that I'm a pencil pushing engineer. I'm familiar with these numbers. I have a reference point for what these units and quantified numbers mean. Not everybody has that. Building that experience and measuring on what's out there. Also, having the designers of the signs indicate any accessories or products added to that sign to limit viewing angle and to display mark on a plan where their expected viewing angle is and how far with the height. That goes a long way to show expected vantage point and limitation and being cognizant of the area that it's in. I can't read that from the plans. I can't, as an outside third-party review, I can't read that. I don't know. I haven't designed a billboard. I work with lighting. That would go a long way to explain to me what their expectation is, and then we can go and verify their expectation once it's been constructed.
Mr. Cost, with regard to the additional limitations, this is the second time, of course, we've heard a reference to additional limitations. Where can we see those, though?
I have that in the memo that we submitted. Chance, when was that it was turned in last?
Late last week.
Late last week.
Okay, maybe in our packet. Let me pull that up.
It was included in the packet.
Those typically include, an animation prohibition, a limit on number of transitions per hour, the distance to consider from viewing angle, height potentially, some items like that. I don't believe, Dan, that we made a specific recommendation on any of those, but we may be able to.
Part of it is pointing out that would be something good to constrain. You guys are the ones that will know best how to limit that and what you want and what is acceptable. It's a recommendation, kind of a things to consider that maybe you hadn't considered constraining in these types of signs before.
Is there any other questions or comments from the commission? Now we can move on to the next application, please.
So the next location is Padre Island Highway 6105 to be precise. The current zoning is also commercial corridor. This particular sign will have a static face and an illuminated face. This red dot with the red arrow is what represents the co-location site. Towards the east, there is an existing billboard 1,992 feet away. To the west, we have another billboard at 1,992 feet. The first one was actually 4,672 feet. And I'll just forward to the distance. Okay, so as mentioned, this will be a dually faced billboard. It will be static, it will not have an illuminated side. It's approved by TxDOT. The area is 320 square feet. The elevation is 35 feet. The closest billboard to the north would be 4,672 feet, and to the south would be 1,992. This is a render of the proposed billboard. And the approximate location based on the property lines. and in the surrounding area of residential uses and commercial uses. And this is the recommendation.
If, for this one, it's located in a commercial light industrial type property. There are residential properties just south and east of the location. Some may have direct view of the display. Could be mitigated through accessories, limiting viewing angles. It most closely resembles lighting zone 2 by IES definitions. That's the 40 candelas per meter squared. This is where it gets a little nuanced on lighting terminology. If this is not an electronic luminance display, light being projected from the surface, it's going to be the lights that is reflected off of the surface would be constrained to that 40 candelas per meter squared.
Are there any questions or comments from the commission?
I do have a question on this. So if 4 years from now, they want to put a digital, do they go through the whole process or what do we do, Mr. Vega? Like, what do you do right now when some of these billboards are being changed to digital? Do they have to come in and do the process or they just change?
No, they have to come in and do a process. They have to submit an application so that staff can actually review.
Okay, so if they were to come back 4 years from now, they would still have to be approved?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we can move on to the next application.
The final location is located at 5182 Padre Island Highway, property zone commercial corridor. It is very close to the previously proposed sign. The arrow in red represents the location. As mentioned, the property is on commercial corridor, and the closest sign to the north is 2,615 feet. To the south, along the same side, is 3,999 feet. It will be duly faced and it will be static. It has been approved by TxDOT and the area is 320 square feet with an elevation of 35 feet. This is the render of the proposed location. And the approximate location in reference to property lines and structures. And as you can see, there's residential uses and commercial uses within the surrounding. And this is the consultant's recommendations.
Just like what was just said, the close proximity of residential and the sparsity around that, I think this most closely resembles lighting zone 1 by the IS recommendations, or by the IS definitions, and thus the recommendation would be 20 candelas per meter squared of luminance from those signs.
So one of the things that you've heard us, mention several times in this is a need to consider additional limits potentially, but we haven't had the opportunity to develop those further. We really want direction from the city before taking those steps, either to independently develop some specific standards for each of these signs, or to possibly look at this pilot program as a whole and standards that you might want to put in place. So that would be a key direction that would be, I think, helpful for both us as the consultant as well as city staff. We did get some applicant information, but there's a few more details that we need to be able to really hammer out what these limits should probably be.
Are there any questions or comments from the commission? Is the commission open to opening up public hearing before we give our final thoughts? This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on these items? Not, I'll entertain a motion to close public hearings.
Move to close.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those against? Public hearing closed.
So when we're talking about these the additional recommendations, and I'm looking at the memo from Friesen Nichols, where in that memo can I find this information? I see the lumen recommendations, and then the next section goes into recommendations for future billboards. Where am I missing the additional limitations? Or where can I find those?
2.02, the submittal requirements, and post-construction inspections, 2.03, page 10 and 11.
Okay, and my contention on that is that section 2 says recommendations for future electronic billboards. To me, when I read that, that tells me you're talking about in the future. You're not talking about these 4 specific ones. So when we're talking about these 4 and some its limitations on size, some its limitations on angle, do we have something that shows that level of specificity? Because I think what my colleagues are looking for, what I'd like to see is to be able to say, I'd like to move to approve this with what's been recommended, but I don't see those recommendations anywhere. To just say size, height, and viewing angle is vague.
And that goes to us not having enough information about each specific sign. Those types of standards should be put in place for these types of signs and any future ones that you may consider going forward. Since these aren't built, we refer to these as future signs. And that's part of what we're asking for in terms of direction is do y'all want to take that step? That wasn't something that was specifically asked of us in our evaluation in terms of getting into the details of a standard study. But we can certainly do that. And I don't think it would take a terribly long time.
Those would also require additional information from the designer of the signs that's not been.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes, that's correct. We would specifically be looking for some information on viewing angle, sign transition frequency, and some information like that. And we are pretty familiar with the folks at Media Choice. We've worked with them in a few other cities, so we're comfortable working with them on this.
With regard to that last one, the recommendation to restrict placement on this site, is that just a reference to restricting placement to the location identified? Or does that reference something else?
Martin, would you be able to flip to the location information for the sign so I've got the tie to which site this is?
Sure.
All right. Okay, so this is the one where we saw that it was directly adjacent to a good bit of residential property. And these are things where it becomes really a policy conversation for you. When we look at this, we see that the residential areas are very close to the sign, likely significantly impacted with a lot of visibility. And so that's our way of saying, you may want to consider whether this site is appropriate at all for this type of sign.
Very good. Thank you. That's what I wanted to clarify.
I have a couple of questions and comments. First question, what is our current regulation on nighttime illumination for the city of Brownsville?
Based on what was approved on the ordinance, it just states that as long text that approves the billboard, because they do go through a vetting process on the lumens, that the city would accept it.
I get it, but do we have one? Like, for example, with the issue we had in Alton Glore with the residents there, is there a nighttime illumination that we could find out what that is? I mean, here we have nighttime illumination of 20, 60, and 80 recommended. Do we have any idea what that one is? And how do we regulate that?
Well, we don't have equipment to do the measuring of how many lumens or the other unit candles per meter each sign has.
That answers my next question. Who currently regulates illuminations? We don't have the metric for it.
But it's TxDOT then, correct? The TxDOT standard is what's applied?
Correct.
They're not unregulated.
I get it, and we had an issue in Alton Gloria because they're not regulated. I have a question with the residents. Commissioner Dos Santos, if you look confused, the residents across the street?
No, I remember that, but no, they are regulated. They're not unregulated.
By the city, they're not.
Not by the city.
I'm asking if these people are recommending to us that they're 20, 60, 80, I guarantee they're all of them said TxDOT approved. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All of them?
Yes.
Correct. So we won't know the difference between 20, 60, and 80 as a city. We will not know the difference is my question.
I think when we issue the permit, and assuming that we make a motion to approve these with the recommendations, then that would be built into the programming on the sign, because each and every one of these that's illuminated should be adjustable.
Yeah, I agree with you, but we don't have how to measure it.
True.
Okay. Next question that I had is, are all of these, in the original pilot program, what was the deadline for application submissions?
April 17th.
Were all 4 of these within the April 17th or after April 17th?
They were before. These were the ones that were tabled on May 21st out of caution.
Yes, but the application were submitted fully before April 17th?
Yes, they were submitted before April 17th.
And just to add to that, Commission and Deputy Mayor and Mayor, they were submitted before the deadline, but they didn't go to P&Z until the first meeting in May, I believe. And so when it came to you all, it was in the second meeting in May, second regular meeting in May, that is, where those items were tabled. But in the next item, you'll find out that there are some applications that came in after the deadline.
Yes. But these all, my question was just, these made it.
These came in before the deadline.
These made it before the deadline. Perfect. Just a couple of comments. As you guys know, or don't know, my colleagues know, I am probably the sole person that did not approve billboards by my vote in the original pilot ordinance that went out for a pilot program. We already as a city face a lot of issues regulating trash, brush, long grass, campaign signs, on top of a million other things that we are understaffed for. I believe that our staff put in a lot of hours into looking at radius and between one sign and the other, and we went back and forth, and you guys worked for months probably on something like this, on top of now we have consultants online, and we use the taxpayer dollars on things that we're still uncertain. I quoted some of their comments right now. We don't have that yet. You all will know best. We're looking for direction from the city. We need more information. And so for me, opening up this pilot program and just opening up Pandora's box gets us here, where my concern with citizens that communicate to me about the billboards, especially the new ones that we approved. Well, I didn't, but the commission did. The 4 that were put in, those, right, are concerned to some of our residents. And knowing that we're a city that can regulate, but is understaffed to regulate grass, regulate trash, brush. My concern for this commission is to really consider and to look at the fact that, making harsh and brash decisions without proper information and knowing puts us behind the 8 ball and puts us in the position that I believe that we're in with certain residents. I don't know what we can do to go back and regulate those lumens for the people who live nearby that are affected by that. But I would urge this commission to take that into consideration when voting for any billboards as we move forward, and putting those on the agenda where we are not at all, I believe, ready to make any kind of those decisions with our consultants online that are asking for more information from the city and guidance from us that we are yet to be able to provide.
Good points, Commissioner. I just want to clarify, I have a question that you said. We're not reopening the pilot, right? We are considering these applications that came in during the pilot period, correct?
Correct. That's what this item is for.
Well, that one's coming up. Being up my next comment.
So my concern, Martin, and I thank you for all your work. I know it's a thankless job. But my concern is that the asterisk at the bottom of almost every slide that says there are other limitations that should be considered. And I feel very reluctant to approve something when there are other things we haven't discussed amongst ourselves or with you in terms of what those local recommendations should be. Commissioner De Los Santos has said several times he is concerned with what's appropriate for local as opposed to best practices. I tend to go with best practices. However, it seems like there's a lot of variation in what those best practices are. So I do think it's appropriate to discuss locally, what do we want to stand for in terms of standards. And so I feel hesitant and reluctant to approve anything with that asterisk at the bottom that says, but we have other things to consider. Because then what, are you going to bring it back to us? Or is something going to be installed that then later cannot be changed? And I have that concern.
All right. So as mentioned, these are all recommendations from the consultant based on best practices. However, if these signs are approved, it's future policies are not retroactive on the signs that were already
So
installed.
they wouldn't have to comply because they've already been approved.
Right. But if you wish to have staff and with the consultant's recommendation, continue doing research and perhaps proposing parameters, then that would take additional time.
Martin, typically from the time a permit is issued, how long does it take for construction to start and complete on something like this?
Just using the first one that pops into my mind as reference, a sign in front of Applebee's, it went through the process here in commission. Let's say about 45 days for the review. Then the review of the actual construction permit, let's say another 5 days, 10 days, depending on how accurate the submittal was for the structural portion. And then there's a lot of things that play a factor, material, schedules of contractors, but let's say 3 or 4 months.
And to Freeze and Nichols, you guys said, once you get additional information, you could turn around to give us specifics on those additional recommendations. What type of turnaround time would you guys be looking at?
Not sure on that. Probably my guess is around a month. That would give us time to look at what they send in, review it, do some quality control review, coordinate with staff, and have something pretty polished.
And to council, if the commission approved it subject to the additional limitations, which are to be defined still, that means they would still have to comply with anything we come back with, correct?
My preference would be, to answer your question, yes, you could, but my preference would be that you table it, get the information, whatever the additional criteria is, and then decide at the follow-up meeting, these are the criteria so that the applicant knows what the permit's going to be subject to. This way, right now it could be considered arbitrary and capricious if you just say pending the consultant's final review.
No, that's a good point. And to Dr. Gowan's point, and I agree, because I think when we tabled these before and we looked back on some of the others, the concern especially was around residential areas and the impact it had on quality of life in a residential area, especially at night. And so I fully support restrictions on lumens when you've got a direct impact to a residential area. But yeah, if there are additional recommendations, I think we need to know what those are.
And I see this is a public hearing. Do we need to go through first and second reading for this as well?
No, there won't be a second reading, but if you end up tabling, I would open the public hearing, hear whatever testimony you have today, and then table it until.
Already closed public hearing.
Yeah, instead of closing it, just table it so that you don't have to open it up the next time.
So I make a motion to table.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table. Any further discussion?
I do have a couple of questions, because, I mean, I see this 20, 80, and 60, I think were the numbers. I have no idea what that means whatsoever. Is there any way we can see this, right? Like, what is on our expressways right now? Is that an 80? Is that 120? I have no idea what it is. So I think it's important that when we're being asked to vote on something like this, we can at least try to understand what we're being asked to vote on. And I have absolutely no idea. I don't know if anybody knows how bright the ones on the expressway are. So I think it's important for us to at least try to figure that part out. If we're going out for consultants, I do think that maybe we should have those measured so we have an idea of what it is, right? How bright are those? If the one on Alton Glory is too bright, well, how bright is too bright? And I guess everybody has a different view at them, because I've seen it and I don't think it's too bright, but I don't live next to it. So I think it's important for us to know how bright they are.
And I think, and that's going to be the key thing, not just how bright is 20, is 40, is 80, but it's how bright is it and how far is the nearest house.
And how high is it?
Right. Yeah, there'll be a few factors to look at.
And the frequency, I think that's important, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I do believe that moving forward, if billboards are gonna be inevitable, that there be some sort of regulation instead of currently right now. I just don't believe there is. I know that the mayor is in front of his house. There's one that flashes, I think, every 5 or 10 seconds. And I know that it kind of goes a little bit into his nightlife of keeping them a little bit awake in certain rooms. But I don't know. I don't know what the regulation of frequency is, because those colors change, and some are darker and some are brighter. And so that creates also issues.
So just a comment in response, we can provide some examples of different brightness levels. We can also actually come down and measure some specific signs to give you some really specific examples that you maybe drive by every day for those. One thing we'll also note is, in terms of us being able to produce something, it's all based on getting the information we need from the applicant. I fully expect the applicant would be pretty responsive, but we do need that amount of time to be able to look at what they provided us and make the adjustments, make recommendations.
Mayor, did you have a comment to say?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate my comments from the last meeting on this topic, that I'm definitely against electronic billboards near residential areas. I think that just it really alters negatively the quality of life for those residents, and whatever benefit that the commission is trying to do to help local businesses, advertise on these billboards, I think are it's not worth it. So and yes, I do have an electronic sign across the street from my house, and it is very frustrating. And more than anything, it's the bright whites that flash that really are very distracting. And I would say on the expressway as well, there's signs that are, in my opinion, way too bright, even for TxDOT standards. I think that it is a safety issue, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table. Any further discussion? Commissioner Macias.
I do have another question. What about the ones that aren't on by homes? Are there some of these that were not by homes or there isn't?
I think most of these are not.
No, I think some, I mean, they said residential south. I mean,
Well, I think that's where the 20 came in because those were the closest to. And that's why on that one also there was a recommendation to restrict placement on the site.
again, I mean, so I don't know what 20 means. I was just wondering if there was any that were not by homes at all, nowhere near home.
Well, out of the 4 applications, 3 were by or close to residences.
All right, thank you.
I know that, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, because all of a sudden kind of went blank. I just want to state my comments on here. I know that this is new. I can see that we're all trying to find what is best scenario. I know we're trying to look for some standards. I just wanted to state that I know we have accepted some in the last 6-month pilot, this program. And I do find it unfair that, they were within the time and I'm not, I'm just trying to vouch for what is fair. And so I understand that there are some concerns that, if this is going to be grandfathered in, we can change that. And so I'm just trying to find what is going to be in the middle ground because we have already tabled this before. We've had them waiting. It's already been like 2 months. What is going to be middle ground? Because I do find it unfair that we have accepted some, but we're not accepting these. So I do feel like we are, being unfair. And I did see that 2 of them were by a commercial corridor.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Those against? Motion passes.
Next are items for individual consideration. Action item number 1, consideration and action on resolution number 2023-120-A, extending the procedures for review of billboard applications submitted after the deadline to May 31st, 2024, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
So this slide just shows the 4 applications that are currently pending. First one being on Boca Chica, 2424 Boca Chica Boulevard. It was submitted on April 15th, completed on April 18th. Then another location at 500 Morrison Road, submitted on May 13th, 2024. And another location at 295 Expressway 77, submitted on May 20th. And finally, at 3343 Boca Chica Boulevard, submitted on May 31st, 2024. And as mentioned, this item is to propose the extension date to May 31st based on the submittals.
So all of those would be allowed to submit their application if we extend the date.
Well, they submitted their application, they would be allowed to be reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Commission.
And we assume that they would have to also be reviewed by the consultant to be fair to those that came in.
Yeah, and I think what happened was back in April, because I know I was the one that made the motion to table back in April when we did this. There was confusion about what the deadline was, and I think so even for staff, that's how applications came in after the deadline, because there was confusion about when the deadline was. And that's why I wasn't ready to vote that night, because I think we found out that night, we got the confirmation that it was April 17th. So there had already been applications that came in when we were voting on this in May.
And And part of the pilot program, of course, was to find and learn from the other applications, right? So now we know elimination is something that we are concerned with, right? And so as part of this extension, we can add that into the review of these additional applications that came in after the deadline.
Was there a deadline posted anywhere?
For this one,
No, the April 17th.
there was no deadline posted, but I don't believe so. But
I
it
believe
was,
on the resolution.
yeah, it was on the resolution. So that's the only posting we would have. Was it on the application?
I don't recall off the top of my head.
And this doesn't necessarily guarantee that they're gonna get approved. This means that we're gonna just consider them.
Correct.
There's besides those on your previous slide that you know of?
Not currently submitted. However, there are inquiries and desires from other applicants to submit their proposed sites.
There were others that attempted to submit, but once we knew the deadline had passed, we stopped accepting, correct?
Well, just as a reminder, Acela is an open portal. Acela, which is our record managing software, it's open to the public to submit. So we can't pause the incoming of applications. However, we don't act on them. They're in the system, but there's no action.
And there's no action because it's not permitted or allowed, or it's like if I ask for a commercial building in a residential site, well, yeah, they could, you can't stop anybody from applying from this in the state of Texas, but that doesn't mean that your regulations allow for that.
But these did apply correctly. Although,
well, they submitted.
Right, but with that, but they were not within your pilot time period. That's why what you're considering is a possible extension to May 31st to extend that period to allow to be able to review those additional 4 that are on the other slide.
but there isn't a 5th one or a 6th one. There's nothing left.
Not within this time period, sir.
But are there some after that time period?
Sounds like it.
No,
Not that have been accepted, is my
Correct.
understanding.
right.
These are the only thing that the city has in our possession that have not moved forward in the process.
Right.
Or some that were not able to submit.
Yes,
Correct.
or there could be some that maybe have interest depending on where this goes.
And it would be important to know I mean, I understand that the consultants will provide more information at the next meeting on the 4 that was tabled. And that could become part of your criteria that y'all decide to adopt, right? If you want to continue with billboards. But that is something that staff needs to know is this going to continue? And you don't have to decide this evening, because this is only allowing the applicants that came in after the deadline to be part of the pilot program. But at some point, we do need to close the program and determine whether or not billboards will continue or if we're going to go back to the way we were doing it before.
Is the program not closed right now?
It is right now.
It is.
It is closed, right? So you're just saying like disappear it or make it a,
Change ordinance.
or not.
Yeah, we're going to change the ordinance to make it permanent.
But it is closed, so I'm just gonna, again, give everybody my 2 cents. That's all it's worth. I do believe that, and that's just a core belief in everything we've ever done, is when you know, set precedent, in extensions and things of that nature, after a deadline, it sets, I don't know, a feeling of undermining in the integrity and policies and processes. I don't want us to diminish the value and of this commission and open the door to further disregard of deadlines in the future. I do believe it is important that we not weaken the public trust in our ability to enforce fairness and accountability. I know that our commission's decision has to always be that there's a perception of fairness, impartiality, and governance. I urge the commission and the mayor to adhere by the established guidelines and discuss whether this pilot program wants to be reopened for everyone, right? I think that that's something that is valid. I believe everybody here knows where I stand on that, but I'm just one person. I do believe that talking about the pilot expansion is something different than making an exception for some, but not for all. So those are just my comments. My hope is, Commissioner, that after we evaluate all of these things, we find all the gaps that we can avoid in the future, building an ordinance that will allow us to be black and white and say, this is what's allowable, this is not what's not allowable. And this is a pilot program, just like the valet parking. We don't have something currently in place that allows us to standardize things like I would like to as well. Everything should be fair across the board. That's just my opinion on this, that I want us as staff and commission to learn from this and apply it towards the ordinance. That way we can take away more the feelings of it and be more black and white at the end of the day. I don't think we're different in what we want. I think the difference is if you allow some, you should allow all. And that should be a different discussion, not this item that we're seeing right here.
No, and I agree with you 100%, Commissioner. I think that is the ultimate goal, because what we had before, where only one company could do it, that wasn't fair for everybody. And I think the reason we went with the pilot route first was to learn from it. And clearly we have, and we are still learning. I think the next step would be moving to change in ordinance to where it's allowed, but under the new restrictions with limitations on proximity to residential areas, lumen limitations within certain proximities to residential areas, and the same things if we find something that can be universally applied with regard to height, angle, or other things based on location and proximity to the areas that the commission wants to protect and the community wants to protect, I think it's appropriate then to move forward with that. I think for the purposes of this, though, I am interested in clearing these applications out since we did accept them. You know, I think I have no problem with these moving forward so that they can be put through the same vetting that the last four we're looking at have been gone through with Friesen Nichols, so they can be evaluated for the same thing, for lumens, height, angle, anything and everything else. That way, when we start working towards a new ordinance, it's not with anything still hanging over our heads. It's with clean slate. Now everybody gets to apply under the new ordinance. So I think we move these forward.
So I agree with all of you, but it just seems to me that May 31st is an arbitrary decision. I mean, why not June 10th or July 1st? Why are we, how did you arrive at May 31st? And I think this discussion has gone on a long time, and we probably need to move on, both for our sakes, but as well as for the public's sake. But, you know, what about that person or business that wanted to apply June 5th? Well, they're still not being included in the batch. So I think deadlines are important, to Commissioner Villarreal's point, and it's an arbitrary decision.
Council, correct me if I'm wrong, the May 31st date was chosen because it encompasses what's on hand.
Correct.
However, if somebody had interest and was told we're not accepting applications at this time,
That's
then
correct,
is that
too.
fair? You know, you can't say, well, the cell is open, they could have applied anyway. Well, if they were told not to apply, they wouldn't have done so.
Yeah, I mean, you are correct. I won't say it's fair or not fair, but you are correct in saying that any applicants that want to come in after the 31st of May wouldn't be able to, because the pilot program would have been paused or stopped.
But I'd also
But the
say that the
pilot program-
pilot program is also to learn. It's just like the valet parking. You're just that, you know, that's the whole point of a pilot, right? To understand during a certain period of time, what are the possible impacts of a policy decision. Prior to you, in prior commissions, they decided that billboards were not appropriate. They didn't want to see it. And then, you know, Lamar sued and there came up some sort of settlement agreement, and they have actually taken, for every 2 to 3 billboards, they've placed one new. So that was kind of, and that's what you see a lot across many cities throughout the nation, is that they want to take it out of, say, a historic corridor or residential area, so they'll do like a 3-to-1 match. We did that in California when I was in planning department there. But part of this is you have a period of time for a pilot to see the both positive and negative effects of any policy decision. Here, we've gone through 4 during a certain period of time. These 4, you know, the 4 were considered, these other 4 came in, and so now, you know, we're establishing possible guidelines with a consultant to be able to do that, because as you can see, it's very specialized. It's nothing that staff can really evaluate. To come back to you and also the consultant, they need more information. Hopefully they'll be able to do that within 30 days. That's also contingent upon the applicant giving them more information on heights and lumens and angles and stuff like that. So and then from there, this governing body could decide as a policymakers how you want to move forward with that. Do you want to move forward with certain types of conditions, of distances? Do you not want to move forward? Whatever you decide to do, that will help set the guidance for future billboard companies, or actually, this is actually good also because we have illuminated signs. So we really don't have guidelines for the illuminated signs. However, whatever you do, I would also like for you to also say, what about the smaller signs, right? There's some that are not necessarily billboards, but are smaller signs that we have throughout the city, you know, are some of them like blinking very quickly. So the frequency is something that can be even applied to new small signs.
Martin, that raises a good question for me. So today, with something that's not considered an off-premise sign, does TxDOT regulate those the same way?
No.
So somebody who's building a plaza on the expressway could put up a sign comparable in size, also illuminated, but not doing off-premise advertising. And they wouldn't be subject to the same lumen restrictions?
Commissioner, when the UDC was drafted, billboards were prohibited, so we didn't create lumen standards for billboards. But we did create lumen standards and changeable copy standards for on-premise signs, and they're in the Unified Development Code already. So we'll be looking at the sign the mayor mentioned.
Excellent, thank you.
I think on that same topic, to Commissioner Villarreal's point, you know, when we base ourselves off of state standards, that could be changed with a stroke of a pen. And for us locally, we need to protect our own municipality in the sense of having our own standardization. So I'd hope to see that once we construct the ordinance, that we have our own standards in place. Anybody from the commission have any further comments or questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now those against, say nay.
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 I don't know if we were
Yes.
ready to vote for
Marina,
Commissioner
roll
Macias.
call, please vote.
We can do a roll call just to confirm. Thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Macias.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Cohen.
Nay.
Thank you. Commissioner Villarreal.
Nay.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Martinez. Thank you. Commissioner Gowan. Thank you. Commissioner De Los Santos.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Cardenas.
Aye.
Thank you.
The
I'm
motion
showing
passes.
4 ayes and 3 nays.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next are board appointments. Consideration and action on resolution number 2024-092 to appoint members to the Youth Advisory Board, City Manager's Office.
Deputy Mayor Pro Tem and Commission. Last commission meeting, you approved our creation of our Youth Advisory Board. We have reached out to all the high schools and we received 8 nominations, 1 from each of the BISD schools and 1 from St. Joseph's Academy. So we have 8 nominees for you to appoint tonight. These would be appointed as a group, as a whole, based on the way the resolution was written by the commission. And we'll continue to reach out to the other high schools and ask them if they have eligible juniors or seniors who want to join anytime during the year. And if they get back to us, we'll be happy to bring those nominations forward. We'd like to get started on this. Their appointment period would be from today until May. So we'd like for them to start meeting, get them oriented, and get them working on some issues that can help them develop leadership and also contribute toward the community.
So all the schools were, every school, not just those BIC and
Correct.
St. Joe, were approached.
I
Charter.
approached 18 different schools.
Thank you.
Yes.
And we're so excited because this is part of your strategic visioning plan.
I wanted to thank you guys and Alan, the amount of work that you've put in behind the scenes. I really want to thank you with our 100-meter dash, with our golf tournament, and reaching out to all of these entities, whether they're public, private, or charter. I think it's a great start for us to connect with our youth and to really start building future leaders of Brownsville. I think it's going to be fantastic, and thank you so much for your hard work.
Thank you. It's been a privilege. Thank you.
Congratulations to Commissioner Villarreal. I mean, this was his project. I think he did a great job. Staff did an amazing job at that golf tournament. We had a lot of fun. I think it'll get better every year. So congratulations to everybody involved.
Great job.
I'll move
I
to approve.
agree.
Second.
And I just wanted to add comments on there that, congratulations, Commissioner Villarreal definitely been aiming to have a more youth approach. And so it was a quick turnaround too with the golf tournament. So I'll be excited to participate in the next year and help out however I can to support you with that. My only question on this is I don't see any of the charter schools on there, such as Jubilee Academies, Harmony Public Schools, or Idea Public Schools.
They were, Commissioner Macias, they were all contacted. Mr. Guard contacted 18 schools, all public, private, and charter within the city limits. And these were the people who responded. Now, if those schools provide another nominee, I'm more than sure that our commission would be more than happy to expand the Youth Advisory Board. I think every high school should be represented.
And I will make another effort to reach out to them again. The more the merrier.
And plus with the passage of this tonight and the public seeing which schools are included and which schools are left out, hopefully that'll light a fire under those that have not been responsive.
That's right.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that question's, I see this and I'm like, that's so unfair. We're excluding charter schools, but definitely after asking the question and having this information, it puts me at ease that we did do our due diligence and we reached out to all entities that could possibly participate in this board. Thank you.
This is an action item, right? We're not appointing anybody tonight.
So this would be an action item to accept these appointments.
First and a second already?
It's to approve the resolution which appoints these.
Very good. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Against? Motion passes.
Next item.
Man, one more thing. I'll work with Commissioner Villarreal to see when he's available so we can have our first meeting because I'd like for you to be there to talk to them.
Thank you.
Okay?
Next item is consideration and action on resolution number 2024-093 for the City of Brownsville expressing its nomination for appraisal district directors for the Cameron Appraisal District Board of Directors.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we take this into executive session, because I know this is a change in state laws. There's a lot of moving parts to this. Before we start making nominations, I want to make sure that all of us have a clear understanding.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. I'll entertain a motion for executive session.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion passes.
Thank you. For the record, I will be reading the following items. It is now 7 p.m. Executive session, item number 1, closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney related to solid waste services and recycling. And then we will be adding the executive session, item number 2, which is closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, consult attorney related to nominations for Cameron Appraisal District.
We're ready, Marina.
Oh, the mayor's, is on?
Oh, the chief, Fred Fraser, okay.
Are we live?
Ready.
Okay, it is now 7:49 PM. Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to reconvene to the regular session?
Yes, ma'am. Please proceed.
Thank you. So next, we're going to discuss the item that we had for action item number 2 under board appointments, consideration and action on resolution number 2024-093 for the city of Brownsville expressing its nomination for appraisal district directors for Cameron Appraisal District Board of Directors. And I'd like to mention that we do have our chief appraiser online, so thank you for joining us. And this item here is, currently we do have a total of 13 members representing the board, 10 of which represent the taxing entities, 3 plus the 3 that are elected, and then 1 of the 10 is the tax assessor collector. That process is changing. The current board members will cease, with the exception of the 3 elected, at the end of this calendar year. We do currently have Ruben Martinez, who's finishing Tipton's term through December 31st, 2024. And the new process will include a resolution that we will need to send. The commission here may nominate 1 or up to 5 individuals that's going to be going on a ballot that we will be receiving on or about October 31st. And so we were notified by this new process by the Cameron Appraisal District Office. We do need to submit the resolution by October 14, 2024 with the 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 nominations.
Mayor, I'll nominate Ruben Martinez.
We have a motion and a second to nominate Ruben Martinez. Any further discussion? On all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, motion passes.
Mayor, I'd like to nominate Vicente Mendez.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Vote for Vicente Mendez. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion passes.
I'd like to nominate Craig Grove.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to nominate Craig Grove. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, motion passes.
Anybody else?
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We had no additional possible action items discussed in executive session, and the time is 7:51 PM. Meeting has ended.
That would have been nice, but.